From the ashes of an empire to legacy of Star Wars, this is our Star Wars The Acolyte finale review discussion. Will there be a season two? Should there be a season two? We're going to dive into a bunch tonight. If you're tuning in for the first time, welcome. This is a brand new channel, only one piece of content up prior to this, a very rushed piece of content, just so something was on the channel before this to help with algorithm purposes. If you haven't yet, please like, comment, subscribe, and turn notifications to all to keep up to date with all of our future content. We will be back weekly after this, doing all sorts of different Star Wars things. But for now, our focus is on the Acolyte season finale. Perhaps it's a series finale. We'll get into that and all that much more. Joining me as always, first up, sporting the Rick and Morty shirts. Kieran, what's going on, buddy?
Oh, not too much. Just hot off the heels of this episode. Had a pretty decent day today. Was having a pretty good day, and then this happened, and I'll let you know very soon how I feel about that. Very emotional, I'll tell you that much.
Also joining me, he contributes over on the Legacy of Westeros. So does Kieran, and he's the co-host here as well. It's Randy, man. How you doing? Episode 8 is in the books. How are you feeling?
Well, obviously, kind of down for some reason, for a pretty obvious reason, kind of pissed for another obvious reason that we'll get into, and kind of lots of questions going through my head. I didn't think season finales or series finales should be doing that, but here we are, and I have questions. So it'll be interesting discussion tonight for sure.
Well, we're not going to waste any time. We're going to dive right into this, whether we go 60 minutes, 90 minutes, we'll see what happens. But if you have any thoughts on I would almost call it a series finale again. It might be, we'll talk about that. But if you have any thoughts on episode 8 of The Acolyte season 1, please share them down below, whether you're in the live comment section or just in the normal comment section after we were live. All right, so I guess let's tackle it this way. I'll give a, you know what? Why don't we go around the table? We'll start from Randy and work our way across, just like manga comics. Full spoilers here, man. Give it to us.
So, I didn't hate the episode. I didn't. My wife said she didn't like the way it ended. I was like, you know what? Sometimes the good guys lose. That's just how it works. That's real life. Because honestly, that's how they ended it, and that's fine. It happens. But let's kind of jump back, and obviously some of the speculations we had last week kind of sort of came to fruition to some degree. I will say there was some nice little Easter eggs they tossed in there that if it was kind of like if you miss it, if you blink, you miss it. I had to explain to her why the lightsaber, the kyber crystal changed from blue to red, which is fine. She's not as in deep into the lore as we are. The choreography for both fights was actually really well done. I feel like we got a lot of good action. We got a lot of good drama too. Obviously, as we all said, we knew Soul was going to die. We didn't know how. I can't remember which one of us said that was probably going to be Osha that actually killed him. But honestly, I had no clue that she was going to do it the way she did. And yeah, it was definitely not. I wasn't happy to see him go. He was definitely the best part of the show, but and we knew it was going to happen. It kind of had to happen to kind of push things forward. And the fact that we learned that Chimera the Stranger was a former student for Venestra, that was kind of surprising. I didn't really expect that at first, but yeah, you did kind of hint at that. And let me get to the pissed part. Finestra's a bitch. I hate her ass right now. How could you do my boy's soul that bad? Come on now, that's bullshit. Okay, that was my angry part, because I really was not happy with that. Granted, the fact that she went and did that, and then she went and goes, we get our Yoda cameo at the end, the back of his head, but we know it's Yoda. And then obviously the little slick reveal of our Sith Lord, which I know, Sean, you've been clamoring for that for a while now, as to who the Sith Lord was. And I mean, anybody who doesn't read the extended universe legends or pay attention to all the articles we go around, obviously, it's. I still can't believe they went. I should say I can't believe they pulled the trigger on it, but they did. But yeah, all in all, did it save everything? I mean, like I said, it has more questions. I have more questions now than I did when the series started. So if we get a season 2, they better answer some of these damn questions. Because that's just, how can a Sith Lord be that powerful and they have no clue he's there? That's pretty well hidden for the way I see it. Because I'm kind of surprised Osha couldn't sense him, considering the amount of force energy that came out of her probably after having that helmet on. But I don't know. My thoughts are so jumbled all over the place. It's not funny, just because there's just so many different things going through my head right now. I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, but I guess if it leads to a season 2, it's a good thing.
Well, that's what tonight's for, right? We're gonna talk about those feelings and talk about the episode and see which one of us, goes nuts first. We'll see.
I got a couch right here, Randy. I'll clean up a little bit. You can lay on the couch.
You get back and forth between you two.
Talk about all your feelings.
Star Wars therapy.
That would make a really good channel.
Should have went with that name.
All right. Cancel the channel. We're starting again tomorrow. I assume we're going to me now? All right. I loved it. Of course I loved it. I thought everything was done really well. I mean, there's a couple things that, I have a couple little gripes about it, but the vast majority of it I quite love. We knew Soul was going to die, so Soul dying in this way, with a tear in his eye and, saying it's okay and trying to utter that he loved her, and it was his mistake and he paid for it. He seemed to understand it. And I liked the thing about Soul in this episode was that he kept saying, I did the right thing. He has thought about it. He was definitely on the edge of and then the more that the history's been brought up and things like that, he knows, he's like, I would have done it again. I would have done the same thing. I still feel like I did what I did was right, which I liked, because you don't want a character to die. You want a character to die firmly on the hill that they, were standing on, whatever. So I liked everything to do with Soul. The lightsaber battle was awesome. I think that was, for me, the best in the series. I know there's been some great ones. There's been some great fights, not specifically just lightsaber fights, but I enjoyed the hell out of that. We got so many things that connect to the, legends, lore, and blah, 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 and people will probably just be pissed about it anyways. They won't care that a Kyber crystal got bled, or that Plagueis was in it, or that, they, did all these things or a mind wipe, all those things. They'll probably just be like, well, mind wipe took 5 seconds. It should take a minute to do or something. I don't know. There'll be something. So, I don't know. They really full court pressed in this episode. I think they threw everything at it. I'm a little bit upset about the Vernestra thing. I hear you, Randy, on that, because, and like I said, I've read 3 or 4 books with her in it, and it seems like she's a much different character than she is. But that's her 15 years old to 20 years old, and now her being like 100 something years old, right? She's over 100 now, I think, right? So I'm okay with the idea that she changed in 80 years. It does disappoint me a little bit, and she still is. I think she's very smart in the books, but it seems like her wisdom has brought her a little bit of cockiness. I like the idea that they buried Soul. It's like a Batman type of thing. He's the Dark Knight. He could take it. Although he's dead. Batman wasn't dead. But, they buried it in a way that made sense. They also, Vernestra was able to bring it out to the council. Like, I like the whole thing. I actually, what Tommy said here, they don't really need a season 2. I want one, but Plagueis goes on and does Plagueis things. We know that, and we know that the council ends up, become like everything is tied up enough that it could be a 1-season thing. But I really want a season 2. I want to watch all 8 episodes again tomorrow. Like I liked it. Now let's hear what he has to say about it.
So I'm pissed off. But probably not for the reasons that this guy thinks. I'm pissed off because for me, that was the best episode in the series. And by a landslide in every facet. Acting, production wise, score, lore reveals. It had it all. And I like there's a bunch of questions. So like I don't agree with they wrapped up enough for this to be 1 season. For me, actually, we all did a House of the Dragon show last night on the Legacy of Westeros, which you can find on podcatchers of Legacy of Westeros. Go check that out. But you had said that for you, most of season 1 felt like it could have been skipped. Well, if you take away, the first 4 episodes of the series and then take season or episode 7 and punt it into space somewhere and start with like the big lightsaber battle, because he just kills a bunch of characters you don't get time with anyway, and begin the series from there, all of a sudden, to me, you're talking about one of, the best starts to a Star Wars series ever, if not the best. But instead, we're talking about a bunch of wasted time, not used time, terrible run times where characters don't get time to breathe. And this episode, I think, clocked in at an actual runtime of like 43 minutes of actual footage, which is the longest in the series, which is great because it felt like it too. Like the pacing in this episode was very good. I did like the way they did the ending of the episode as well. Like I thought that was very well done. I got a big question for you guys that I'll get to here in a second, but to touch on the lightsaber battle, I liked the way it was done. It felt a little bit like Obi-Wan and Anakin, uh, lightsaber battle in a narrow hallway. I'm not sure I like the slow motion bit they did, but I just, if you were to just, forget about everything else and look at just this episode, I think it's great. And I think a lot of people are not going to like them saying that, but it is. And the frustrating part about that is, though, and one of the reasons why I'm pissed off, is viewership has gone week over week, like it to a point where it's really bad. It started off good on that the first 2 weeks there, or 3 weeks there, or first 2 weeks because that was 3 episodes, and then it has tanked since. And it's like, so if your goal was to hook everybody at the end for a season 2, and I agree with Kieran. If the numbers end up like if this picks the numbers back up to make them okay, I think they will chance a season 2. But with the way studios are now, the fact that Disney gets to make the call and not Lucasfilm, Lucasfilm gets to make their projects, but Disney at the end of the day gets to go, yay, nay, yay, nay. And if Disney decides between the divisiveness online and the turmoil in the fandom, and I'd love to say that that doesn't play a part, but like, hey guys, Rian Johnson was supposed to do his own Star Wars movie trilogy, and then The Last Jedi happened, and how's that movie trilogy? Has anyone seen it? No, no. How many years ago was that? 7? Oh, okay. Um, and I'm someone where that movie has grown on me, but I don't represent the mass audience, and I'm a little. I said to Zach Arnold before I got on here, he hasn't seen the show yet. I said to him, like, I thought it was the best episode yet by quite some bit, but I also think it's probably too little too late, and that we're probably not going to get a payoff for this. If I had to bet one way or another, I don't think there will be a season 2, even though this episode desperately asks for one. So let's bring up the elephant in the room, or the Mune in the room, if you will. Plagueis, he was in it. If you blinked at the wrong time, you missed him, but he was in it. And I do find your point interesting, Randy. Nobody sensed him, but if you've read the Plagueis novel, which is Legends now, like, this is a guy that loves the idea of hiding in the shadows and studying people from afar and not giving up his positioning. And I'll give my I'm gonna wrap this back around. I'll give my Plagueis thoughts in a bit, but what were your guys' thoughts on Plagueis being in it? And more so, Leslie Headland saying within the last couple of weeks that there are 2 Sith Lords. Oh God, what the hell? There are 2. I don't know why it does that. That there are 2 Sith
2.
Lords. Yeah, 2 Sith Lords in the finale. So my question to you guys is: 1, what did you think of Plagueis being in it? And 2, are we sure we know who the 2 Sith Lords are at this current point in time in that episode? Because she confirmed it herself right out of her mouth. 2 of them in this episode. And I think there are about 4 or 5 possibilities, believe it or not. Randy, we'll go to you first.
So the reveal of Plagueis, we knew based on where we were in the timeline that we had to get something. Whether we did get Plagueis, because, Palpatine's not that far off when you really think about the timeline here. And the reveal was, I was like, oh shit, check that out. My wife looked at me like, what? I was like, that's the Sith Lord. She's like, what? Because she wasn't really paying attention for that. But yeah, then I had to explain to her who it was, how he falls in the timeline, things like that. And I'm cool with it. Honestly, there was that part of me that was kind of waiting at the end to see if he kind of popped back up and struck down one or both of them, because of the fact of just how things got messed up. Even though in the end, Kamir got his acolyte essentially. But as far as a second Sith Lord, there's that part of me, like, I'm not gonna lie, like the minute we got to see Senator Rancor, when we see David Harewood in his senatorial best, and just the way he reacted towards the Jedi, I was like, are we going this Palpatine route again? Literally, that's the first thing that popped into my head. I'm like, is he the Sith Lord in disguise? And then, of course, the very next scene, we get to see Plagueis, which kind of so. But if she did confirm there's 2, part of me is hedging my bets on him, but I'm probably wrong, just because not all senators are supposed to be evil, right? I honestly don't know who the other, because I don't see Chimera being a Sith Lord. I feel like if he was that powerful, he could have potentially overpowered Soul. But again, given how that all played out, maybe he held back on purpose to give either May or Osha that opportunity to strike him down. So I guess it's always possible. I'm definitely curious to hear your thoughts on who the others could be. But yeah, that, like I said, this just leaves questions. This, like, I just I want to know more. I want to hear Plagueis speak. I want to know more about Chimera's backstory and how he found him and started training him. Like, I'm kind of invested in that now, to where I want to see that dynamic of master and apprentice, just because Chimera's character, once he finally just dropped the whole goofy ass facade he had, he became a really strong character that drew me in and made me want to know more about him. And now that Plagueis is on the board, if we get a season 2, there's so much backstory and stuff we can get on this character. And honestly, I'm not surprised Plagueis showed up, just because of what the Coven did and how they used the Virgins to create life, but not only create life, but basically take an individual and split them into two. So I don't know. Well, we'll see. Kieran, I'm curious. Who did you think the other Sith Lord was?
Well, before I get to that, I was so about the Plagueis thing, because he just peeked out, and and it didn't happen at the very end, but I think had that happened more at the very end, I think it would have been more impactful. But I think it's cool. It ties it into the lineage of Sith Lords. It makes sense. It's what a lot of people wanted. Um, so I'm happy that he was in it. I kind of wish it was right at the end, though, but I don't know. When it comes to who's the other Sith Lord, I don't know. The Stranger or Chimera seems to be very powerful, so I'm not beyond just thinking it's just him and it's just him and Plagueis. It could be Vernestra. It seems like she's on a weird path right now. But I mean, we're talking about. It still has to be in the future for her. She's not currently a Sith Lord. I don't think that wouldn't make much sense. So I mean, I don't know. I can see it being the senator there. It was cool seeing him on screen again. He was like Martian Manhunter in the DC universe at some point, which was cool. But yeah, no, I was cool with Plagueis, and I was cool with the Yoda thing at the end too, even though it was just the end of I don't think I needed more. I know a lot of people seem to be upset from what I've scanned in the 15 minutes since the episode that he didn't actually say anything, or we didn't get whatever. And same with Plagueis. There was a lot of people that were like, well, he didn't even, he didn't talk, or he didn't do anything, or whatever. I'm okay with that sort of stuff. I was okay with it. I wasn't over the moon about it. I was definitely shocked when it happened. I think pretty much everyone was like, holy fuck, when it happened. But whether it was a good thing or not, that's, I think that's going to get a mixed review.
I want to address sorry, cat. I want to address a couple of the comments here before I give my take. Tommy says, if that was Plagueis, I didn't get a look at face, only fingers. I'm disappointed it was in this way. It could have been done earlier and actually meant something. This is just a cameo at this point. If there's no season 2, you're right. Like, I don't know how anyone can debate that. It is just a cameo. And for a lot of people, like Randy's wife, like Jade, they don't know who the fuck that is. It's like, hey, is that one of the guys from the banking clan in Attack of the Clones? I can't really tell.
If they don't know Plagueis, they probably don't go, oh, it's one of those banking clan guys in a hood.
Right.
What's a Neimoidian doing there?
Oh no, the end of the Neimoidian scoring system tonight. No. Now we need season 2. And then the other comment I wanted to address is Apollo's. Look, I want to preface this by saying, Apollo, I really appreciate the support you give us across multiple channels. We appreciate you coming in and sharing your thoughts. You're entitled to them. He says, so the Jedi and Yoda couldn't sense a Sith Lord is around. Come on, guys, what are we doing? Can I point out that the prequels happened and they were literally whining and dining with the most powerful being in the galaxy and had no fucking clue he was right in front of them? And when I mean right in front of them, I mean like this close to them. So like I get the problems people have with the series and the liberties that were taken, and I'm right there with you with a lot of them. But I think when you come to this channel anyways, the one thing you will get out of us all is honesty, whether it's something we love, dislike, hate, but also objectivity and being fair. And I think if you're going to be fair, I don't know how you can make that comment and then not think even worse about the prequels. I'll get on board with you and burn down bridges for that bullshit song they played at the end of the last episode. But yeah, I don't think you can, fairly say that about this and then not hold the prequels to the same standard. Um, so Plagueis, Tommy, by the way, that was 100% him, no doubt. Um, I don't know who like. It really is a gamble on who the other Sith Lord is. It could be Chimere, but then there's the why did they play the Knights of Ren thing with? I don't know why it's doing this. Um, it could be Chimere. They've intentionally played the Knights of Ren thing multiple times now, and Leslie Headland's been very passive about being asked about it, other than like, "Oh, hey, that's a good question. I'm not answering it, but that's a good question." Um, so you got Chimere, you got. I think I know you're saying it doesn't make sense, Kieran, but like I think you have to consider Venestra, considering the shit she did, fucking doing Soul like that, and
Bitch.
honestly, just her positioning and lack of ethics throughout this entire series. Um, which, by the way, I actually seen her as a kid in the oh my god, whatever that Young High Republic show is for kids. It's meant for like people
Yeah.
between the age of like 3 and 8.
High
And they
Republic,
show
High
her in the
Republic
background,
Adventures or something like that. Yeah.
something like they showed her in the background of the last episode when Jensen was watching. It's like, oh hey, that's Venestra. So this show's like 100 years earlier. Okay, well now I can place it somewhere. Um, so like I think you have to consider her. So you got Chimere, you got Venestra, and then I think you kind of have to consider David Harwood. Like he is a fairly notable actor with a big on-screen presence, and it's Plagueis that, at least in Legends, they could switch this up in canon, that is harping on Palpatine about, no, we're going to do this through the Senate. It's not about invading the Jedi. It's not about sneak attacking the Jedi from the outside and gaining power that way. We're going to gain political power. So is that the dynamic? His character, the senator there, and Plagueis, and Chimere has no idea that Plagueis is even on what I believe is Baldemnik. Um, I just re-listened to the first few hours of the Plagueis audiobook, and like the planet sounds identical to the one that they're on right now in the Acolyte. So that gave me a little more confidence that, oh, okay, well maybe this is going to deliver. I don't know if the senator is supposed to be a different species version of Tenebris. He definitely seemed to have a thing out for the Jedi. Um, I don't know. I think all three of them are possibilities. And then you might say, is Plagueis even a Sith yet? Are we far enough back to where he has Sith, aspirations, if you will? there's a ton of questions, and it'll be ashamed if they don't get answered. My guess is though, if they don't get answered on screen, if it becomes clear that they're not going to get a season of TV greenlit, that it can become either an animated thing
Books,
or
comics.
yeah, which would be unfortunate because that's not how it should be finished. But that's what you get when you don't properly use the screen time you have throughout 8 episodes. So, um, Kieran, I'm going to go to you next. Anything from this episode that you want to discuss in particular? Anything from the season you want to discuss? I don't know if you're seeing anything online. It looks like you keep looking at things. I haven't looked online, so I have no idea what the response is. By the way, I just want us to take a second. I apologize for the thumbnail, everybody. It's very spoilery. It's not meant to be. I had it there because I went into tonight going, well, I'm going to bitch about Plagueis not being in it, so let's have him in a little circle up in the corner. Um, turns out he is in it, and yeah. So, anyway, Kieran, floor's yours. Anything you want, man.
I guess we spoke about Chimera and Soul. We haven't really spoke about May and OSHA, so we should probably get to that.
You mean Revan and Revanosha, basically?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting if it goes that way. I mean, I don't know if she's going to. I don't know if May will be trained as a Jedi or something like that. Or, I mean, Vernestra said, help me catch this bad guy. But I did think like it was done really well. Like when it came to Soul, who beat Chimera and or beat the Stranger. We need a Darth name for this guy. We when he beat him, and then May and OSHA came into play. He confessed, and OSHA was able to hear all this. And like very conveniently, and this is such a Star Wars thing. She's wearing the black outfit or whatever. She's going to be a bad guy. Like the outfit that someone wears is like is a big, usually a big signal towards where they're going or where they are, which is cool because she has her own sort of Sith outfit. I like Chimera's black sleeveless thing too. I like the way that went. The only thing I didn't quite get, and I guess it kind of like plays into that she's becoming a Sith and she's giving into her anger, was when her reaction when May said, Soul killed our mother. She's like, fine, I'm going to beat you up. And I was like, okay, that makes you so angry you're going to beat May up. I didn't quite get that. She got really angry and snapped, but like to ensue a big fight with May after that, it didn't make much sense to me, I guess. Like she should have been like, oh, fine, I'm pissed at Soul. Let's go find him and beat the shit out of him. But instead, she got in a little skirmish with May over it. So I didn't really get that, but
it's because she didn't want it to be true.
It can pretty easily be explained. Sorry?
She didn't want it to be true. She cared for Soul because he looked out for her, and she didn't want it to be true. So basically, she lashed out in anger because she felt like May was lying to her.
Yeah, see, so that's what I told myself in my head as that was happening. But I thought it should be more like maybe there should have been another line of dialogue, or like maybe she should have said like, "I don't fucking believe you." Not fucking, but she should have said, "I don't believe you," while she was like, or like that can't be true. Or there should have been some sort of dialogue that I think pointed to what she was thinking when that happened, because. But yeah, I mean, she's getting angry. She's turning to the dark side. Not too much longer. Not too much later. She bleeds a kyber crystal, which means she's obviously given in to all the anger. The confrontation between them two, and her choking out Soul was I think pretty cool. I think they completed the double turn, which is pretty cool. I think we all kind of predicted a lot of the way that this was going to go between all characters, but I still found it very rewarding. I still like the way it went. But I don't know if you guys have any other sort of comments on how May and Osha went. We didn't really go over, you know, how their stories went, or even we didn't talk about Osha at the very start taking the helmet off and what was going on there with Kymir being in two different worlds, like a Shadow Wraith world, like Lord of the Rings there. I didn't really understand what was going on there, but it was kind of explained. I didn't really get that part. I don't know if maybe I'm just brain farting here, but I didn't really understand what was going on there, and I just wrote it off at the end, like, that's fine. It was cool anyways.
Well, think about what Anastasia did to Torben and what the Witch Coven did to Kalnaka. She was doing something similar because she was finally tapped in because of the helmet. And when he finally got the helmet off her, if you noticed, it was brief, but her eyes flashed Sith, and then they came back to her natural brown. Like, it was that fast. Like, once the helmet came off, they were there, and then they were gone. Like, she was on the verge.
Okay.
So I think what it was is her power, because since Anastasia did create them, essentially, and the Coven probably had trained them and taught them many similar techniques, I feel like this was that same technique that Anastasia used on Torben to kind of infiltrate his mind. Because you saw when we saw the real world, essentially, his eyes were fully black, just like Torben's when he had fallen to his knees.
Okay. All right. I guess I just didn't piece that together, but the way you explained it makes a lot of sense.
On the Osha and May front, you know, Leslie Headland very clearly likes Knights of the Old Republic and Revan, because that's the second time in this series where they alluded to shit that happened to Revan, and with the mind wipe thing. That's the second time we got reference to the mind wipe thing. But on top of that, they also do, like, she's basically split like Revan does in the Old Republic. If you follow Knights of the Old Republic 1 to the Revan novel all the way into the Old Republic MMO game, Revan's sort of final thing is he gets split into two entities, if you will. And that's what she is. So, not saying she is Revan. Please God, no. But definitely some cherry picking being done there. Also, I just looked at social media for the first time, and obviously there's a bunch of people sharing the Plagueis screenshot. And I had mentioned, well, who knows if Plagueis is even a Sith yet? He's definitely a Sith. He has the Sith eyes. There is, you know, as Sith eyesy as they can be. Emil brings up
I wouldn't have doubted that anyways.
I guess I just didn't know where they were in the timeline, right? Because even in the Plagueis novel, he starts off as the apprentice. So I mean, that's still a Sith, though.
He still could be
an apprentice theoretically. So,
well, I mean, Maul had the eyes.
It would be interesting if Plagueis used the Witch's Coven to create life, to create his own generations of Sith, and in turn, he can have more connection with Osha. Not sure if I understand the last part of that email, but being they never address how the whole Coven thing went down, they alluded to there was some misgivings, if you will, or some shady shit in terms of how the girls came into existence. We never get an explanation on it, really. I'm going to guess Plagueis has a role to play in that, given that, at least in the Legends universe, that's his whole thing, right? Creating life and influencing midi-chlorians. So, for all we know, he was on the fucking planet. So, you know, we'll have to wait and see what happens in regards to that. Kieran, you're a big Soul guy, man. How'd you feel about how he was done at the end? You know, I know you talked on it a little bit earlier, but like,
you mean about how he passed, or you mean about him now having the legacy of being not a very good Jedi?
Yeah, they tarnished his reputation, and like it. You know, I understand people that are diehard Jedi are probably really not liking the series, because at the end of the day,
I am.
make them feel, not very ethical. And I don't know about you, you're watching um, Kymir and Osha and May under the tree there, and it's just like, why does it feel like ethically these three are better than the Jedi right now? I definitely had that thought. Not that I had a problem with that thought, because I'm open to that. The Jedi were corrupt in the prequels too, if you're paying close enough attention. But just how you feeling about Soul? I know he was your guy, and he dies in this episode and gets essentially Vadered by Osha, and then Venestra basically makes him the scapegoat, if you will, the Jack Perry of the show.
I literally
I love
thought that
all
just as you originally said that.
Let's just pile on the stuff people don't like. I love the scapegoat and I love Soul. So I very much like the way that he died. I mean, I actually have a kind of an affinity for characters that die, believing in what they think of. Like I've always enjoyed. I don't know. I've enjoyed death scenes of characters that I like. I don't know why, but I've always kind of thought that was a cool thing to see. And I know a lot of people have this thing where they don't like their favorite characters to die because they feel like that's the end of their story and they can't, you know, there's nothing else to learn about this character or whatever. But I'm always I'm okay with it. They could tell other stories from before with Soul in it. Everybody dies. Everybody's got an end. There's an end to everybody's story, and that's fine. I really like the way that his story ended. Like I said, he died being of sound mind at this point. Like he was like, okay, what I did was right. He believes what he did. He probably feels remorse for having killed Mother Anastasia, but he knows that he's like, okay, like, in the time, what was happening, I was trying to defend the children, and this is what happened, and I would have done it again. Like I was of sound mind, and I reacted the way I reacted. And he does seem regretful about the way things happened because he gets all teary about talking about it and defending his actions. So I think there's some regret there. So I really liked the scene. It was very emotional. Like I said, he tried to say that he loved her. He told her it was okay before. Like it's kind of like like if you're gonna come back from this someday, like it's okay. This is okay with what happened. As for being done wrong, I mean, Jedi's are not supposed to, like, for Soul. If Soul becomes a Force ghost or whatever, or if there's a consciousness that gets to look back at this, there's no attachment to what you've done. There's no, like, it's okay. It doesn't matter. It doesn't mean anything. Like, your reputation it's not important. It's a thing to let go of. So I don't think that the character, if he's in any sort of state still, would be upset about it. I think that obviously Vernestra, once again, she used it, and she's obviously one of these Jedi who's flying way off the path. She's grasping at straws, trying to keep this religious cult in order. Like she's doing everything to keep the Jedi clean, even though she's just getting things more dirty. And she's got her own loose ends to clean up. There's obviously something to do with Kymir as well that she really wants tied up, and we might not find out what that is. I think that would be perfect if we got that part in a comic or in a book, like a book about what happened between Kymir and Vernestra. I think that would work in a comic book or a book. I don't think most of the other main story stuff would work as well, but if that's where we're going to go, that's fine. So I actually don't have a problem with that at all. I actually don't have a problem with Soul being a bad guy in the history books now, even though he's a good guy. I actually kind of think it's neat. I didn't have any problem with it. And as as a very avid Jedi lover and believer in the Jedi and what they stand for, like, read the High Republic books, then you'll get all the great Jedi stuff. If you get the Fall of the Jedi, this is the start of the Fall of the Jedi. It's fine. So I like that. I like everything to do with Soul in the whole series. I think he's fantastic. Give that man a Emmy or whatever. Give that man an award.
Oh boy, not award talk again.
I know he won't. I'm not that silly, but like, for me, he can win a golden Terrence Award or whatever, whatever you want to call it.
I don't even know what to say to that.
Here you go, sir. Here's your award.
Are we sure that Soul's a good Jedi? Like, as much as I
Are we
want to
sure
throw
that Soul?
Venestra,
Sorry.
are we sure Soul is a good Jedi? Like, as much as I want to throw Venestra under the bus for her actions at the end, sorry, I got a dog who is being a pain in the butt. As much as we want to throw Venestra under the bus for her actions at the end, it wasn't like it was all lie. Some of it was truth, depending on your point of view, as Ben Kenobi would say. And like, Soul's about to blow May to smithereens. There's no capturing her, running her down. He is aiming to kill her there. And I was just like, okay, that might be a bit much. Did anybody catch that when he's chasing her down?
But was it going to be like an ion torpedo, or was it going to be like a torpedo? So
we don't know.
When they try to disable her.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't.
And can we actually appreciate that chase scene? Like, how cool that looked, going into the rings and seeing all the ice and dust, and just how it just all came together nicely. I mean, I thought that was actually a really cool chase scene.
I mean, the production quality on this episode was fantastic. Another
now you know where all the budget went.
yeah. Well, maybe they need to spread it out a little better than that.
179 million for this one episode.
Right?
Well, we got 1 million for the rest. You could work with that, right?
If you've played through Knights of the Old Republic 1 and 2, this kind of had like a KOTOR 2 feel to it when they go back to Brendok and they're where the Witch's Coven was. Like, we see it 16 years earlier, and it's all nice and prestige and looks great. And we actually see it twice 16 years earlier, because they did that second episode that contained half the same footage. But don't get me started on that. And then we go 16 years into the future, and it looks like a rundown, abandoned place where the weeds are out of control and, looks like a shithole. And you get that in Knights of the Old Republic 2 when they jump ahead 5 years from the previous game, and the Jedi Enclave was bombed at the end of the first game, and you go back to it in the second game, and for me it felt very reminiscent of that. And I thought it was handled well. Like, we all talk about Game of Thrones and House of the Dragon here, and they handle production quality well, and while it's not on that level, it was miles above in this episode, same with episode 6, than the rest of the series. And I got to give them credit, even the lightsaber choreography and in this, and the way they made use of the environments. And I just, it's frustrating because I feel like it could have been a great series, and instead I'm sitting here going, yeah, well, it was okay. I'll give them my stamp of okay on it. When I very quickly think back to the series, I go, okay, so episode 1 was okay, episode 2 was meh, really liked episode 3, hated episode 4, liked episode 5, but it could have been great if it wasn't 24 minutes long. Episode 6 I thought was fantastic. Episode 7 I thought was a useless piece of shit. And then episode 8 I thought was the best one. I know there's fluctuations and stuff, and I've heard the excuse used that, well, Star Wars isn't Game of Thrones or House of the Dragon. It's supposed to be. Star Wars is supposed to be event television. They literally launched Disney Plus on the back of The Mandalorian. They used it. They had their big Disney Plus day and announced all these Star Wars shows, which I think we've seen 3 of them, and a bunch of them have been canceled.
You're gonna let your children watch Game of Thrones when they're like 5, aren't you?
No, I let Zach start at 16. So, oh yeah,
They're
Jensen
the,
sees
they're
some
the
dragon
same.
stuff.
They're the same thing. They're supposed to be the same thing.
No, I'm talking like event television or event movies. Like you get excited to go see Star Wars or the Batman or Lord of the Rings, and people try to sell a lot of the new Star Wars series off. Well, it's just a TV show, so it's on par with anything the CW does. It's like, no, it's not supposed to be on par with anything the CW does. This is Star Wars. You're supposed to hold it to a certain level of prestige.
I don't know. We're on our what season are we on? What Disney Plus season we're on? Like 8th or 9th season of Star Wars television?
Oh man, I don't even know. Like if you're counting
Like
the
it,
animated, probably more than that.
like it's it's gonna it's not like, oh my god, it's Star Wars again. Like that's long gone. That's it's the same thing as, oh my god, another Marvel movie. You're like, ugh, throw it on the pile. Like I'll get around to it when it's this hero I like, right? I don't think Star Wars. It's been a long time. Probably The Force Awakens or The Last Jedi since I was like, oh my god, Star Wars. We're getting more of Star Wars. Like now I expect to get Star Wars all the time. Like I'm gonna get it in less than a year. I'll probably get more Star Wars. Like whatever.
Few months, but yeah. So
Yeah, I don't think. I don't know. I don't necessarily agree with that. I do think they like. I think that they could have done a lot more with the money that they have, but I don't know. I never like I've said before. I never base my enjoyment on like, man, they paid a lot more, so I should have got more out of this. Like I don't care what the production budget is. I enjoyed it. It was good. It was short, but I don't know. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed most of it. I think it's a great story. I want to watch it again tomorrow. So I don't really care that it was not long enough or not, like the sets weren't good enough or any of that stuff. I don't know. I think the story was good. So I don't know. I don't necessarily agree with your point.
I think it's gonna be interesting to see what happens on a binge rewatch, kind of see the feel of the entire series based upon that, because it's been said multiple times that this feels like something that if you binged it or was just literally put together as a one big movie, there you go, it would actually work a lot better.
I know we all felt that way about Kenobi. Not to interrupt, but quickly, I think myself, Sean, and Johnny all felt that way about Kenobi. Was that like this was supposed to be a movie, and then they made it a series, and it feels like it should have been a movie.
You know what? Remind me. I know we're on air right now, but remind me after this to send you the link to what the Kenobi movie trilogy was supposed to be. Some of the scripts ended up getting out there. A guy did a really cool video on them, and it's probably going to make you go, "Well, fuck! I wanted that, not the series." So.
I don't know. I liked Kenobi, anyways. Once again, if I'm happy with what I got, I don't romanticize about what I didn't get. I'll save that for Halloween movies we didn't get.
There's enough of them. So
yeah.
No, I mean, I have a standard, right? And the day that Westeros projects takes the turn that you're saying Star Wars is taking, which I agree with, by the way, the more they've done, the more ordinary it's gotten, is the day I'll say, okay, that's supposed to happen. And maybe it'll happen with the Night of the Seven Kingdoms. Maybe it'll happen with the Aegon the Conqueror show. But until it does, or a show like The Last of Us does, I'll sit here and go, hey, you can still, as long as you're approving shows with massive budgets, it should still feel like an event. It's one of the reasons why I'm not upset about the Rey movie being, sort of in limbo right now, because don't do it unless you get it right. You've already said this thing is basically the Jedi Academy movie. That's, building up hype. That's bleeding into a Legends thing. Do it properly. Don't rush it. So, the unfortunate thing about TV today is, even if we get a season 2 of The Acolyte, when the hell is that? Like, it ain't next year, and it's probably not 2026 because of how busy their teams are. You're probably looking at 2027 at the earliest, and that's the problem when you green light stuff and you don't have an idea on where it's going to go. Don't forget, Ahsoka season 2 didn't get a green light until I think it was May of this year. Almost a year after season 1 debuted. So it could be a year before Disney goes, you know what? Okay, go ahead and do season 2, or don't go ahead and do season 2. And the other thing that happens in that time is actors sign on for different things. And the creatives, even Leslie Headland, might be like, okay, well, I'm not going to wait around while you twiddle your thumbs. I'm going to go do this other project. It's not like she hasn't done anything before. She did Russian Dolls, which was madly successful on Netflix. So, um, these are things at play. I know Kieran doesn't like to think about these things, the behind the scenes things, but they absolutely matter
I mean,
on if you're going to get something or not.
whether or not, like, I do care about how long it takes to get to the next show or the next season. It has to be like, you can't strike while the iron's hot ever, because that's, unless you make the series back to back, and you're, unless someone said, hey, you make 4 seasons, go ahead, then you're not going to get, right. You're never going to strike while the iron's hot. You're going to have to wait for a couple years and then go back and watch season 1 again and be like, wait, did I really like this or not? Or am I really excited about this? Or would I rather get Mandalorian season 5 by then, or something like that, right? Like, I don't know, when does Mandalorian season 4, is that still coming or no?
As of
There's
right
nothing
now,
like
There's a
that
no.
movie
yet.
now.
As of
They're
right
waiting
now,
for the
it's
movie.
toast.
Sorry?
So, as of right now, it's toast. The next thing Mando we're supposed to get is the Mandalorian and Grogu movie that Randy and I both think they desperately need to retitle. So,
They do, for sure.
Is that what the movie's
So
called? Just the
let's
Mandalorian and Grogu?
at this point, that's what they're going with. Yes. Don't get me started.
and they're about to they're close to beginning filming on that. I know.
Yeah,
There
that
was
sounds dumb.
Yeah, it sounds
I mean,
really bad.
that's that sounds dumb, but I mean, whatever. What's in the title?
There has been set photos started to leak of them building sets and stuff. So, like, nothing
Nice.
is definitely happening. So that's
Okay,
just
so
within the last
that's,
week or two.
yeah, that's, that's how I feel about Mandalorian right now. Like, I kind of don't even remember a lot of season 3. Like, I remember very good season 1 and 2 and what happened and everything that, whatever. But like, they can't strike while the iron's hot, because that iron was hot like 2 years ago, right? Like, so yeah, I don't know. If we get a season, I hope we get a season 2 of The Acolyte. And if I was a betting man, I'd say they will. I honestly don't think the streaming numbers, unless they're like terribly poor, and I know that people are saying they're poor, or saying they're so, or
Right now, I'd
saying
call
don't.
them so-so because they started very strong and then they
Yeah,
got very poor. That doesn't mean you get to ignore the very strong start, right? It's really going to depend what weeks 6, 7, 8 bring in, because as of
and
right
then,
now, they only have numbers
streaming
from the
numbers,
first 5.
people can stop watching The Acolyte for 4 weeks and then go back and be like, okay, now I want to finish it, and then watch episode 5, 6, 7, and 8 in
That's
the
what
next
happened with
week.
Ahsoka. There's a
Right?
reason why Ahsoka took almost a year to green light again.
It's what I did with Ahsoka. Honestly, that's like, I wasn't really hooked in, and I was kind of whatever. I ended up finishing it, liking it quite a bit, but like, that's what I did with that season. So yeah, I'm in that group of people that got around to seeing it later. And I think a lot of that happens when you have so many projects. Like, you do get a little bit of a burnout. When I used to be at the midnight showings of the Marvel movies, and then I was opening week for the Marvel movies, and then I was, whenever I got around to going to see it at the theater, to, I'm not really the biggest fan of so and so superhero, so I'll wait till it comes out on streaming. And now there's like 2 or 3 I haven't seen, and I'm just like, who gives a fuck? Like, wait till, like, if Galactus comes out, I'll start watching it again. Or like, if You know, like whenever the X-Men come in, of course I'll start watching it again. Like, and I'm not quite that with Star Wars, but you do get to, oh man, the new show's coming out. Oh man, the new show's coming out. Oh, I heard there's a new show coming out. Yeah, I'll watch it after I'm finish my rewatch of Breaking Bad. And then you get to like, I don't really care to continue watching the Bad Batch. I'll watch it when something relevant, makes me think I need to watch it. You know what I mean? Like, you
Well,
get to a point.
before with Star Wars, they used to have so much in the bank, right? Like the Acolyte, we were talking about 3.5, 4 years ago in my basement studio, right? Like, not as like a theoretical thing, but as something that was in pre-production, and it took them this long to get it out. Obviously, the strike played a massive part in that. But now, like, you have Skeleton Crew, which is basically done. We're supposed to get, I think, in November or December. You have Andor season 2, which is going through some reshoots right now and is supposed to be, I think originally it was supposed to be like February, but my guess is they push it back to May next year. And then other than that, you have Ahsoka greenlit, which means they're not even done writing it yet, which means it's a long way off. And there's nothing else in the bank. They might have something animated. Animated, they can keep under wraps way better than a live action show, right? So, other than that, they're running out of their in the bank stuff, right? So, um, I do want to, before we get to scores and stuff, I want to talk about the potential of season 2 a little bit here. I think we're all on board with we would like season 2 after the way season 1 ended. But let's say they're just going to do season 2 like they did season 1, and instead of really getting into the Darth Plagueis stuff and the senator, I forgot David Harwood's name in the show. I know they mentioned it,
Rancor.
and like Chimere and Osha and the Venestra stuff, and they just tiptoe around some new characters and only touch on that stuff once in a blue moon, and then get to the back half of the season and dive into it. Do you want season 2 if that's the case? To me, no. Like, then just leave it where it is. For me, it's got to be okay. So you need to do Chimera, you need to do Osha, you need to do Venestra, you need to do the Senate side of things. You introduced David Harwood in the last episode, who has a bone to pick with the Jedi.
I think
And
I don't
sorry,
want to. I'd love for Randy to talk because I'm using all the talking time. I'm like Jericho. I need my time.
TV time.
I need my TV time.
Oh, that guy's useless.
I What else could they have done? It's like season 2 is lined up. Like she said, like I need you to help me find this guy. This season, like season 1 is about May and Osha and Soul and what happened there and this. And in the background is Vernestra just being around there, and in the back and Chimere is here. Season 2 is Vernestra going to find Chimere. Like there's
Is
nothing
it
else that
though?
season 2
Is
could be.
it? Like what?
There's
What if it's
nothing else season 2 could be.
what if it's May learning about herself again, traveling with Vanessa and another Jedi, but they don't really touch on this other stuff, and it just gets sprinkled in once in a while. That is such a new Star Wars thing to do. For me, it should be Vanessa. I'm with you. I don't know if that.
I think it's outlined. I think by the way she said, "Hey, I need you to help me find this guy." That was like, and then her going to Yoda, like they're setting up season 2 as like, and there's there's the scar on Chimere's back. Chimere's arc's not done. Like I trust I probably get canceled for this if we had like a giant audience by now, but I trust in the storytelling that in season 1 that the storytelling in season 2 has been lined up and planned. It's very well orchestrated for what season 2 is. I don't think it could be anything else. I think Vernestra uses May to try and go find Chimere, and Osha will be there. She's with Chimere, and Plagueis and Yoda are now. So Yoda takes the place of Vernestra and is the counseling character, and Plagueis might not have a huge I can't see him having a huge role or them making a big character. I think he'll always be a shadowy character because I think that's the way to do it. But I think they've lined all those things up. I think all the bedrock is set. Everything is there for what season 2 is going to be. I don't think it could be anything else. So
Yeah, I'm not
I
saying.
don't. I think there's zero chance that it's just like random characters and whatever.
Randy, what say you?
So it's interesting to think about. Would I like to see season 2? Of course. Obviously, we got a bunch of questions that got asked. Even though yes, this season was tied up in a nice little bow, and you could use this as a one and done, just because the story they told was technically completed. But any good story is always going to leave a breadcrumb trail of questions, which is exactly what this did. A couple things that would be interesting if we do get to season 2. This would actually see Filoni's involvement in greenlighting it, and actually putting his touches on it to ensure that everything's a cohesive with whatever happened in season 1 and what the story they want to tell. So we're gonna get
Sort of cut you off, Randy, but that's important. A lot of people, when they're bashing this thing, they're like, "Oh, well, Filoni greenlit this thing." That no, everything was already shot by the time Filoni took on his new position as basically the content creator head, the Triple H role of Star Wars.
Yeah, so we'll get his touches in it. It'll be probably more cohesive, and things just aren't going to get okayed unless he okays it. So that's a big part of it. But also, now that people have seen Yoda, people have seen Plagueis, people are going to expect them to have a bigger role. And unfortunately, I feel like if we do get that, their presence could detract from the characters we're trying to learn about versus characters we may already know. I mean, yes, Plagueis is still kind of a unknown.
My headphone.
Plagueis is a bit of an unknown to a degree, but Yoda is not. We don't need that type of a distraction where we're expecting Yoda to be in the forefront. What we do need out of season 2 is, like you guys said, we have Vernestra's search for Chimere. We've got we got May training with Chimere. We've got backstory for Chimere to get more kind of what happened between him and Vernestra. Was it Vernestra that gave him the scar on his back, or was it Plagueis through their training? It's going to be very different because it's going to be even more dark side focused than people would be accustomed to. Did this series paint the Jedi in a good light? No. And unfortunately, the Jedi didn't do a good job of that either. When you think about some of the things that happened in the prequel trilogy and the things that we learned, that even they were covering stuff up. So it's nothing new. They talked about how their students are getting more and more arrogant. So even they talked about it, and we're seeing it. We're seeing the start of it. That's what season 1 was. We're seeing the start of it. Season 2, obviously, we need to see the Senate get involved more, to the point of whatever sanctions they want to do against the Jedi, they come close to coming into place, and maybe by some miracle they beat it. Obviously, we see in the prequel trilogy that things are kind of on the level between the Senate and the Jedi, but even though there's more, we knew there was more to it. Ultimately, if season 2 does happen, we know it's not going to be for a while. They're focused on Mandalorian and Grogu and Ahsoka season 2 and Filoni's movie. Those are the big 3 coming up for them. That's the ones that, and honestly, I would prefer that they take their time and put that focus on those projects. Let's not water everything down. That's how we got to where we are. I think and I know a lot of people are like, Star Wars is going downhill. Well, there's a problem. When you oversaturate everything, the product's always not going to be as good as it could be. And when this whole thing started with Disney Plus, we already had 6 movies in the can that were all done by George Lucas, and that's the thing. We're seeing the difference of what Lucas had in mind versus Disney, who is just trying to pump everything out because they're trying to go the Marvel route with Star Wars. And we've seen the detriment it's caused with Marvel too because of that. They've had to pull back some. Even though some of the movies are fairly decent, not every character resonates with individuals at all. And that's the same with Star Wars. It's, we got something good with The Force Awakens. We got a good movie with The Last Jedi. Like I said, it's a good movie, just not a good Star Wars movie. And The Rise of Skywalker is definitely the redheaded stepchild of the 3. But ultimately, it's because of that. It's because of Disney trying to be the machine and pump everything out as quickly as they possibly can. They didn't even take into account quality control. It happens to video games all the time. It's got to get pumped out. We got to make our money. And then you get that day one freaking 60 gig or 80 gig patch because it wasn't finished properly to begin with. They just wanted to rush it out and get their money. And that's what Disney's doing right now. And it's biting them in the ass a little bit, just a little bit. And go ahead.
They do got to find a way to find a fine line between quality control and putting out a good product and not waiting forever. Like Kieran said, it's hard to watch a season of TV and then be like, okay, now wait 2 or 3 years for your second season of TV on anything.
Yeah.
Like, look at House of the Dragon, for example. Episode
At
4 was their most watched episode of this season. And their ratings have constantly gone up week over week over week. But they started off down from where they were in season 1 because you had a 20-month wait in between seasons. People nowadays, they don't want to watch an hour and 17-minute stream that we're doing. Some people do, and we'll get enjoyment out of it. And I still prefer long form content. But short form stuff is rewarded. There's a reason why people have a TikTok app and YouTube Shorts, and people don't want to wait. There is no patience anymore. So I do think you have to find a fine line between quality and getting things out in a decent manner. And they have no fucking clue where that line is right now. Does anybody else have any thoughts before I read some social media reactions for fun, and then get to our scores?
Oh, do we have to do that?
You'll find a couple of them funny.
I have a couple of points. One, I wish I could just post this meme up on the screen right now, but I love people saying Star Wars is ruined, and I've seen this before where it's there's a post where they're Return of the Jedi comes out, Star Wars is ruined, stupid fuzzy bears. The sequel trilogy or the prequel trilogy comes out, Star Wars is ruined, it'll never recover. All these cartoons come out, Star Wars is ruined, they're making it too much like kid stuff. Star Wars is not ruined. Star Wars is not getting ruined. You could continue to say Star Wars is ruined all the time, but I assure you Star Wars is still Star Wars for a lot of people. If you don't, you're allowed to not like whatever you don't like is fine. But I don't know, to be oh, Star Wars is ruined, it's never going to be good again.
Do you want to clarify that for the audience a little bit? Just because earlier this episode you were telling us that Star Wars, was event movie seeing, and when it first came out, television, and you said, of course, when you get more, it's going to start to not feel as it feels like. I'm not saying you're being contradictory. I'm just saying it's coming across a little bit like a contradiction.
No, I'm saying you're the hype level that gets you there to want to watch it immediately is different. It's different, like, me wanting to go see like a Star Wars movie, because we're going to wait a long time for a Star Wars movie. It's going to have been until, it's going to have been years and years and years. So next Star Wars movie that comes out, I'm going to be like waiting to see it in the overnight, first screening possible. But a Star Wars TV show right now is kind of like, yeah, I could throw it on the back burner right now. Like, I don't feel the same way about, I did kind of feel that way about this one, but I was into the High Republic books. But like I said, Ahsoka, I didn't start when it first came out. I watched like 3 episodes and then stopped for a while and then finished it miraculously, while I had a couple of days off work. And like, it just, I don't have to start it right now. I just don't feel the same, like, oh, it's got to, like, right when it comes out, I'm super excited for the first episode. I don't feel that same way. My comment about Star Wars is ruined is just that people will be like, they're still on social media boards, 10 years after they say, that Star Wars has been ruined forever, still talking about Star Wars. And it's like, it wasn't ruined. It wasn't ruined after this movie. It wasn't ruined after the prequels. Like, it wasn't ruined after the sequels. It's not ruined after all the cartoons and the kids' cartoons they brought out. It's not ruined after The Acolyte. Like, it may be something that you don't like, but the downfall of Star Wars, I don't think, is happening imminently. Like, so I don't know.
George says
I just think that's fun.
8 out of 10 for him season finale. We'll get to our scores here very soon, George. Yeah, for me, there's so much Star Wars now that, and again, I don't know if that's going to keep up with now that they're running out of stuff in the bank. But
get around to reading 100 books I haven't read yet.
For me,
Yeah.
It's like some things are going to hit good, some things are not going to hit at all, and some things are going to be a mixed bag. The Acolyte to me is a mixed bag with some high points. Ahsoka I liked, but had some low points. I think people are gonna feel just different ways about different projects, right? Let's go over a few of these. Some of them are positive, some of them are negative. Some of them are just downright funny. From the Real World fan page, so they brought.
Sounds good already.
They brought in Darth Plagueis and Master Yoda in the Star Wars The Acolyte show. What the fuck? So now Master Yoda knows about the situation. Great. ... Meaning that the Sith exists. It's like, I didn't. First of all, Venestra just lied to the whole Senate and the Chancellor. What makes you think she's not going to lie to Yoda too? And
she just said, "I need your guidance." That was it. That she didn't hint at anything.
Yeah. And theoretically speaking, she might not even know it's a Sith thing going on. So Saul could say it one way or another, but there's no concrete evidence.
Well, none of them know about Plagueis.
Yeah.
They know about the witch situation for sure, and they know. I mean, they weren't there to watch Kymir fight Soul either, so they know there's something going on here, and they're not willing to talk about it yet. But they don't know Plagueis is there. They know a guy like we don't even know if Kymir is a Sith. So I don't think.
I do wonder, like, let's say if it's not a long-term plan, but they only want to do one more season. If it turns out that Kymir is more of a Knight of Ren, if Plagueis and let's say it's the Senator dude is the other Sith, decide, you know what, these guys are attracting too much attention to what we're trying to do. We need to eliminate them. Also, Randy brought up a point earlier, and by earlier, I mean earlier in the season, where he mentioned that the Jedi and the Senate aren't like officially connected. They just work together in some areas, and that's got to change. That has to change before the prequels. So
that's what I was going to say. I was going to say that, but I didn't want to interrupt Randy any more than I already do.
That's a good way to
Yeah,
connect the Sith in terms
it'll be
of
very interesting to see if this whole Senate inquiry into the Jedi is where the Senate sort of like injects their order over time. Like where they're like, okay, your Jedi all have to be trained this way. They all have to whatever they sort of like because I've always said the Jedi Order is destroyed by them having so many Jedi and training them all a certain way, and really like giving them a handbook of like, this is your Jedi thing. Like I think that doesn't work for it doesn't work for everyone. It's like a mass produced thing. Once it's mass produced, it's not as good. Um,
I
so
like
I'm
the
very
idea.
interested to see if that would be part of season 2. I think that'd be fantastic if they sort of gave a playbook for the Jedi to go by.
Well, what if? Okay, so here's my theory: if the senator dude is a Sith, getting the Jedi officially connected to the Senate, where they have to be, sort of mandated in a way, which kind of is how they are in the prequels, gives the Sith control over the Jedi. If the Sith can get out control over the Senate, it lines up with what the route they went in the Plagueis book, and before everyone's like, "Oh, they're not going to do that." Well, I mean, there's a lot of evidence to suggest otherwise in this episode. So
Yeah,
now looking at it that way, it kind of makes me go, that guy might be the other Sith. So
yeah, pretty cool. Yeah, I mean, like he makes decisions like, hey, you should promote that Mace Windu guy. He's really smart.
yeah, yeah, promote this fuck. We'll read a few more. Got one from Kieran's favorite content creator here, Star Wars Theory. He says, um, nice, creepy Plagueis, who's maximum 15 years old and has been keeping tabs on them all and learned that these witches can create life from the Force. That's how he figured out this is possible. From Acolyte Witches, dot, dot, dot. To Mr. Theory, there's nothing in canon that gives away Plagueis's age. They could have even changed his species, and no one could have said shit because there was nothing in canon that made him immune. They decided to stick with that, but that doesn't mean he's 15 years old. And if you're gonna bitch about that, maybe bitch about how old Thrawn is in the Ahsoka show, because in terms of just life expectancy, this dude should be on his deathbed and he's not. So yeah, maybe hold all the content to the same standard, not just content that you don't like because it's created by a lesbian. But that's just my 2 cents. Um,
I
that's
love
just,
I love that you're turned against Star Wars Theory now. This is
yeah, he's a fucking dipshit. Um,
uh,
Star Wars Stuff says, did you ever hear the tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise? I thought not. It's not a story the Jedi would tell you. It's a Sith legend, which is a quote from Revenge of the Sith from Palpatine. But then there's a lot of positive. Like there's a lot of Star Wars is back, Plagueis, Yoda, a lot of positive Darth Plagueis stuff. This person obviously missed the memo. Always two there are, no more, no less, a master and apprentice. And the only thing they're focusing on is Kymir holding Osha's hand. It makes me wonder if they just missed the Plagueis bit or what. But like,
maybe it's a
um,
complaint about the fact that there's more than
it
two,
seems like
right?
it's positive post to me.
Okay.
But
There's always three. There's always 3 or 4.
yeah, right.
Well, I
Everyone
mean,
knows that.
let's look at the Jedi games. Fallen Order, Survivor. There's Dark Force users. It's not like Sith are a master and apprentice. That is what it is. Beyond that, they have Dark Force users that will serve with them. They're not exactly Sith because they're not going through the Sith training. It's that's the one thing I think people need to realize is like it's okay. There's going to be Dark Force users no matter what. It doesn't have. They don't have to be Sith.
No, I think that's a valid point. We're gonna ask one more question after we give our scores here. Be curious to hear what Johnny thinks of the finale. He'll be on during another episode in the future, and he can let us know. He's busy currently making Midichlorians the Game Part 2. But without further ado, let's get to our how many Neimoidians out of 10 is this episode. We'll give our season ranking next week. But what do we think out of 10? Kieran, we'll start with you, man.
Sorry, we're doing the season or the episode?
The episode. Season will be next week.
Oh, man. I'm going to give this episode a 9.5.
Oh, wow.
I really like it that much. I liked pretty much everything that happened to it. It happened in it. It was very well rounded to me. I have almost zero problems with it. Like I have really not too many mental hurdles to jump to try to prove anything. I think there was good emotion in it. I think there was good fighting in it. I think there was good storytelling. I think it wrapped up a season 1, but also gave you enough for a season 2. And like I said, I think it's pretty well outlined what season 2 will be if it happens, or if it happens.
Vanessa is just in it for like 10 minutes, and that's it.
Right?
So Vanessa is just in it for like 10 minutes, and that's it.
Yeah. I can't. I feel like the story is very well outlined where it's going there. So, yeah, I'm gonna give it 9.5 because I don't think I've ever given anything a 10, and I definitely wouldn't do that. But I want to add in that 0.5. Like I was thinking 9, but I'm gonna add to that 0.5 just so people can say I'm crazy. I like when people say I'm crazy. 9.5.
I'm gonna regret asking this, but which half of Neimoidian did you cut off here?
Oh, that weird guy on the end, on Randy's end there. That's
the guy that looks like he's from Bob's Burgers.
That's a really weird dude.
Randy, how about you? How many Neimoidians are you giving it out of 10?
So for me, I'm gonna put it up there with the highest ranking I gave one of the episodes earlier in the season, and that was an 8.5. It's definitely not perfect, but it hits on all the notes it needs to hit on. It tidies up the story.
Randy is perfect.
Tidies up the story nicely, but leaves enough breadcrumbs to give us questions and a path for a possible season 2 if they give it to us. But as a complete story, it's there. Other than that, yeah, it's kind of bittersweet just because I enjoy having weekly Star Wars to watch, and I'm not sure how I feel about Skeleton Crew. I mean, I'll still watch it just because I like Star Wars. So whether it's good or bad, I'll still watch it. At this point, I'm actually just kind of getting myself hyped up for Andor, because
we're gonna rewatch that soon on the channel. We'll take a month off or so and do some other content, but we're gonna go and do an episode or 2 of Andor per an episode of this. So that's gonna be fun to go through.
Yeah, and I can't wait for that. And it'd be kind of neat. Just it's a shame that we can't time it to leading up to the premiere of season 2 for Andor, but can only do so much.
It's a long way from now. I don't know if I want to wait that long. So.
I don't blame you. I don't blame you one bit.
All it takes is one reshoot to go wrong, and the thing gets delayed till fall. So.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
I'm going to give it 8.75 Neimoidians out of 10, which is my highest of the season. My previous one was 8.5.
Just go to 9, you piece of shit.
I can't do it. I can't give it a 9. I'll give it 8.75. It's so hard to separate this episode from will there be more to, wow, we wasted a whole penultimate episode on shit we didn't need to see. That bothers me even more now. I might put it at 8.5.
I will say that last episode, after reflection, because I didn't have much of a problem with it, it does seem more and more like well, what happened last week? Even in the recap, they kind of, they they pointed us to what happened in episode 6, and I was like, oh yeah. So I do. I have a growing sentiment with you that episode 7 was not really needed.
I agree. All right, final question. People got to put their money where their mouth is. We can clip it out. We can come back to it in a couple of years if we ever get season 2. Predictions now. Who were the 2 Sith Lords in this episode? You have to make a decision. You cannot go, well, maybe this guy, or maybe that guy, or maybe this guy, or maybe that guy. You got to name them. Randy, who are you going with?
Well, I'm gonna go for the low hanging fruit with Plagueis being one of them, clearly, and I'm gonna say Senator Rancor. There's just something that there was just a presence there. The way, other than the BD he gives off in general, but like there was just something about the way he presented himself to Vernestra and just the council in general. There's just something there that is elusive to the point of where I was like, I can't figure him out, and that's not a bad thing. The fact that there's a bit of an air of mystery about, other than the fact his intent is to screw over the Jedi. But yeah, it just he feels like there's enough there to say he is the other Sith Lord.
I'm gonna go ahead and say that Osha. It's Plagueis and Osha, because I think that Chimere could be the one who Osha ends up surpassing or taking out, or he gets taken out in some other way. I feel like if there's 2 Sith Lords, then Osha is the one who is going to become a Sith Lord. Like if she's saying in the way that 2 Sith Lords, like there is 2 prominent Sith Lords in canon, and one of them is Plagueis, and Plagueis is already kind of Plagueis, and Osha is going to be a big Sith character. I think that Chimera becomes a character whose arc ends with Vernestra, and I think we have to not forget that Osha and May are the central characters of the story, really. So I think that we're trying to tell a saga of how Osha became a big Sith Lord.
I'm going to go with what Randy said. I'm going with Plagueis, and I'm going with the Senator. I think our little discussion a few minutes ago about the Senate and the fact that they're technically not officially connected, and they have to get officially connected well before Phantom Menace seems like a surefire way to set the Sith up to have control and put that dark cloud over the Jedi Order. And, I could see I could see Chimere actually being a Knight of Ren. Maybe not the first one, and maybe he's not Ren per se, but being a Knight of Ren, and Osha following in that footsteps. And rather than it being Jedi focused in season 2, maybe this is what I'm hoping for more than what it would be. The Jedi would be a part of it, but like, I love the idea of Plagueis and the other guy just being like, yeah, this is getting a little bit too busy, and we need to eliminate these fucks. So plus, I'd love to see Plagueis just decapitate Venestra. That'd be fun. But Plagueis is more of a talker than a doer. So even if you've checked out the legend stuff. Anyways, though, that is going to bring it to a conclusion on our episode by episode review of The Acolyte. This is the first one on this channel. It's nice to have just an exclusive Star Wars channel now where only Star Wars content will go. Big thanks to our sponsors across all of our channels. Without them, it'd be hard to do all this separate content for all the channels. But Jesse Storytime Spectacular, Jason Knight with Backtrack Cinema, Chris C_78 if you want to get a Michael Myers mask made, Ryan at Colleague Nation, and our buddy Matt Whitfield, who's going through a tough time right now. Thoughts and prayers are definitely with him. Yeah. Oh, and if you like Halloween stuff, check out Haddonfield and Beyond, Halloween, horror, and Batman. So be on the lookout for that. And if you like Westeros stuff, you can hear the 3 of us and other people over at the Legacy of Westeros on YouTube or available on all podcatchers. Fandom Havens, where anything else that we do that I did not just mention goes. So a bunch of different channels for a bunch of different things. As we close out here, Randy, final thoughts, man.
It's been quite the roller coaster of a season. Started off pretty strong. We definitely got some weak in the middle, but at the end, they pulled it out. Obviously, episode 7 is definitely the bastard child here, but obviously that lull kind of actually fed into the finale, and they hit the ground running, and I didn't touch my phone the entire episode. I was locked in because they just got me hooked because I was just ready for it.
Kieran,
I mean, yeah, I agree with Randy. I didn't even think about my phone. Sometimes I have a thought about my phone, and then I'm like, no, I'm watching TV. Like, I gotta not do this stuff. Not even a thought. Was hooked the whole time. Thought it was a fantastic finale. I liked the season. I liked the series. It does have its problems, and there's we talked about them all. So go back and watch that if you can. But it was fun. It was good, and I look forward to Skeleton Crew because the last time we didn't really know where something was going or what it was going to be about was Andor, and that turned out pretty fucking awesome. So I think that Skeleton Crew could be the same sort of thing as Andor and be something that no one really asked for except for me, and turn out to be something fantastic.
Well, they have talent involved on that project. The question is, did studio meddling screw it up? I know John Watts wasn't very happy, neither was Jude Law, and I guess we'll find out soon how that all turned out.
Jude Law's never happy.
We'll be back next week with an episode of the Legacy of Star Wars, Acolyte Fallout, if there's Star Wars news. And I don't think Kieran's been a part of this segment on our new rendition of this show. But returning for the first time in several weeks now, more than 2 months, is Game of the Week. Game of the Week returns next week, and it's a Star Wars game where you just pick it and we dive into it for a segment and talk about it, and we'll let Kieran pick the game next week so he can bat lead off on, I guess, season 2 of our Game of the Week stuff. If you're looking for bonus content, patreon.com/fandomhaven. Maybe we'll get some watch-alongs up there and some other stuff in due time. But until next time, from the ashes of an empire to the legacy of Star Wars. Oops. May the Force. I almost got through that. It's hard on a phone. May the Force be with you. And someone go check on Star Wars Theory. See if his blood pressure hasn't gotten too high.